What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. My name is JV Wins. I wanted to make a video talking about Naomi Osaka and the overall issues surrounding mental health, specifically with respect to, people who are public facing and are celebrities and in the public eye. Naomi Osaka, as of late, has been sort of a central figure within the ongoing conversation around the merits of mental health and whether it's real, fake, imagined, overblown, and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought that I would, provide some commentary, make a video on that because I actually think that it's an interesting conversation. So Naomi Osaka is currently the number 3 tennis player in the world. The US Open is going on right now. And Naomi Osaka in the third round of the US Open lost to Lila Fernandez. And during the post-match press conference, while answering questions, she broke down into tears. Saying that, she feels like she needs to take a step away and she's going to stop playing tennis for a while. She's made comments in the past about how lately, she's not found happiness with tennis. It's either relief in winning or misery in losing, but there's no happiness to be found. And, this is sort of, compounded upon the conversation of mental health and sort of put her as a central figure within that general conversation. So for me, there are two aspects to this conversation that I kind of wanted to touch on. One is the nature of mental health, whether it's real, fake, overblown. Should these people just shut up and play and fulfill their obligations because they're making millions of dollars and you need to just get out there because you're being paid millions of dollars to play a game or to perform in a sport? That's what a lot of y'all idiot fans out there like to say. So that's the first question to answer, is the validity of it. Is it real, fake, imagined? Is it overblown? What's the deal? And the second aspect of it is, okay, well, if the way that I think about it is, if I was someone who was close to any of these people, how would I counsel them in terms of how to manage a lot of this stuff? What would I say? Or rather, just my general advice on how to go about wrapping your brain around managing this situation so that you can do what you can in order to best facilitate positive mental well-being for yourself. And Naomi Osaka isn't the first person who has lent her voice towards the validity of, or rather how serious mental health is when it comes to people in the public eye and people who have an expectation to perform for the masses. Kevin Love, who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's made comments in the past about the importance of understanding mental health issues. Rory McIlroy, professional golfer, he's talked about it as well. But as of late, Naomi Osaka has been the central figure. And, it was on full display, when she lost in the third round and she just completely broke down and was like, I need to just take a step away. So, first, the validity of mental health. Now, first of all, it's not imagined. It's not overblown. It's a real thing. And a lot of y'all need to understand this. See, a lot of people out there, you guys are actively throwing stones at a glass house. And it's easy for you to throw those stones because you're not the one sitting in that house. But the mental health issue is not overblown. It's real. And we all deal with varying degrees of mental health every day. But it's easier for us to manage those issues individually and thus not have compassion and empathy for these people because we'll never be in their shoes. We are private citizens. We don't have to deal with an expectation upon billions of people to perform. People really need to understand that. But mental health is not overblown. It's a real thing. And I think we're caught up in this old school mentality of if we can't touch it or feel it, it must not be real. But let me assure you that if you can sprain your ankle, if you can break your foot, if you can rupture your Achilles, if you can tear a biceps tendon, and all of those things require surgery and therapy to heal and repair and get back to working order, the brain is no different. The brain is a muscle, just like the rest of your body. And the brain can be injured. I guess not a lot of y'all saw the movie Concussion or know what's going on with CTE research in the NFL and in college football and why they're changing all of these rules every year. But the brain is a muscle. And when the muscle gets injured, it needs repair, therapy, help in order to get back in working order. Negative mental health status is tantamount to an injury of the brain. And when the brain is injured, it needs help and therapy to repair. We got a lot of people who are naysayers towards the merit of therapy. I've never had therapy personally, but I know a lot of people who have a good disposition about themselves, who speak glowingly about how it can help. I've heard a few negative receptions to it, but overall, there's a lot of merit in therapy in terms of helping someone who has issues dealing with mental health. But it's not overblown. It's a muscle, and when the muscle is injured, it needs therapy. It needs help. It needs assistance in terms of fixing it, and then therapy in terms of getting it back in proper working order. Some of y'all out here walking around these streets, y'all need help. Y'all need therapy. You have a negative mental. Your brain is injured. You're in a negative mental state, and y'all need help too. So it's not overblown. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not fake. It is not imagined. It is a real thing. And so we need to get out of this mindset of thinking that if we can't see it, it must not be real. The brain can be injured, and when the brain is injured, it needs help. Somebody such as Naomi Osaka, observing her from afar, obviously, I get the impression that she also deals with a modicum of social anxiety. And when you have social anxiety, it can compound your mental status, and it can tremendously sway it one way or the other. And so when you have social anxiety on top of an expectation to perform for a masses of people, it can make managing your mental health challenging. And we need to have respect and compassion for that, not just for her, but for people who are in her position. Because we don't know what that's like. We can't empathize with it. But that brings me to my next point. And this is a more important point. And this might make some of y'all a little upset, but I don't care. Um, if I was somebody who was close to Naomi Osaka, um, you know, I would sort of try to get her to understand the tenor of the chorus of people who are chattering about her. I would sit her down and I would say, listen, you need to understand the makeup of these people. Um, you know, I'm fairly certain that a large part of what contributes to these people's negative mental health situation is the advent of social media and the things that they have to deal with on a daily basis when every single thing that they do with respect to their careers gets criticized and critiqued, you know, tremendously on a daily basis. Like, we have no idea what it's like to be someone who goes out into a match, maybe underperforms according to expectations, and then you have to deal with the media and zillions of alerts popping up on your phone about people who have an opinion about about what you just went through, even though they'll never experience anything close to that in their entire lives, and thus they have no empathy. And that would sort of be the way that I would try to help her work through this type of stuff and just get her to understand that she should not validate the opinions of this chorus of people by allowing it to negatively impact her emotionally. So, I would tell her, you need to understand the tenor of these people. And a lot of this boils down to economics, which is a going theme for me. But I truly believe that economics allows for us to pierce the veil and truly understand how interpersonal dynamics work, especially in westernized society, especially in America. But really, this is a global dynamic in advanced cultures, right? In advanced developed societies. So, I would sit Osaka down and I would be like, listen, you have to understand the tenor of these people. A lack of empathy breeds contempt. Like, lack of empathy breeds contempt. And people who don't know what it's like to sacrifice tirelessly in order to master a craft so that you can build a legacy for yourself and provide generational wealth, not just for you, but people who you care about and your children and loved ones. People who don't know what it's like to do that and to live in that space cannot empathize. And the people who find it easiest to criticize are people who cannot empathize. It's that simple. So if you look at this sort of stratified economic picture in America, it tells you the story. Currently, the latest in the latest census data, less than $50,000 a year in this country comprises 70.23% of the population. Now, for a lot of y'all who understand how percentages work on a scale from 1 to 100. So if 70.23% of this country comprise people who make less than $50,000 a year, that can give you a good enough idea of what the distribution of wealth in this country looks like. Furthermore, people who make less than $100,000 a year in this country comprises 90.85% of the population, leaving 90.85%, leaving 9.15% of the population that makes over $100,000 a year. Now, I know the expression "money does not buy happiness" warrants merit. I get it. Sure, money doesn't buy happiness, but it damn sure does help. It helps. And I believe that you can gauge a lot about a person based on their socioeconomic status. Rather, based on a person's socioeconomic status, you can determine a lot about a person's mannerisms, dispositions, and overall outlook and worldview on life. A lot of that can be gauged based upon their tax bracket. I do believe that. And it is reasonable to assume that if over 70% of America comprise people who make less than $50,000 a year, then over 70% of America is untapped potential. Over 70% of America comprises people who put on non-slick shoes to go flip burgers at Applebee's, who work, 60, 70 hours a week at Walmart, who work maybe 25 to 35 hours a week at Forever 21, who go and sit in an office cubicle or sit in an office chair, having their soul sucked away for 40 hours a week, counting down the minutes, seconds, and hours until it's 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, and they can get a 48-hour respite before they have to have their soul sucked away for another 40 hours a week the next Monday through Friday. That's 70% of the American population. That's 70% of the population who does not know what it's like to sacrifice tirelessly to build something that can secure generational wealth for themselves and for the people that they care about. That's 70% of this country who aren't builders. And people who aren't builders can in no way empathize with your situation. But you know what they can do? You know what they have plenty of time for? They have plenty of time to get on Twitter and Instagram and comment on everything you're doing as you're sacrificing yourself tirelessly to build something in order to acquire generational wealth for yourself and those whom you care about. Do you know who isn't on social media, ready to critique every moment, every move that you make, and ready to criticize you for breaking down in tears at that post-match press conference? The other 30% of the population. You know why they're not on social media? Because they don't have time to be. They're too busy working, grinding, so that they can build a legacy or establish a legacy for themselves and try to at least procure generational, or at least try to procure generational wealth for themselves and the people that they care about. The majority of the people who have the bandwidth and the time to criticize you on social media, Naomi Osaka, these people have in no way, shape, or form ever committed to sacrificing themselves tirelessly to build something in their lives. They are content with living paycheck to paycheck, with punching in that time clock, with having their souls sucked away at a soul-sucking office job for 40 or 50 years and then retiring to a meaningless pension. This is 70% of the population. The other 30% aren't on social media criticizing you because they're too busy trying to establish that legacy. So you just have to understand the tenor of the people who are criticizing you. That would be the first thing that I told her. Again, it might sound simplistic for me to kind of break this down along economic lines, but I think that it tells the entire story. Now, this is my opinion. If you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments. But the majority of the people who are walking around out here who feel so inclined to criticize Naomi Osaka or people in her position are people who will never be able to empathize with what it's like to be in that position. And that's 70% of the population, the vast majority of it. These people don't have a builder's bone in their body. Okay, they're getting ready to go punch in that time clock. And a lot of these people who might work 9 to 5s, and maybe they work a job answering a phone in an insurance agency. Maybe they're an insurance agent. Maybe they're a state worker. Maybe they're a government worker. Maybe they work at a at a marketing agency, or or maybe they work. Who knows where they work, but they work for 40 hours a week, counting down to the weekend. And Steve Harvey once said something that was very profound. Um, you know, people live in abject misery because they aren't fulfilling their purpose. And most people won't fulfill their purpose. Most people will live their entire lives as a vessel of untapped potential. And you live for the weekend because your life is in abject misery because you're not fulfilling your purpose. And if you were fulfilling your purpose, you'd be building something. But Monday is miserable to you because you're not fulfilling that purpose. If you were, Monday would be a joy. And 70% of this population, for 70% of this population, rather, Monday is a chore. It's not a joy. And these are the majority of the people who are so inclined to criticize Naomi Osaka or people in her position. And that would be what I would tell her. Don't listen to them. If these people were your peers or people who have excelled at the height of American industry, people who have excelled at the very pinnacle of their respective fields of industry or their careers, perhaps you can listen to them because they know what it's like to sacrifice tirelessly in the pursuit of excellence. But those people would never criticize you, so it's a moot point. And the reason why those people would never criticize you is because they know what it's like to be in your position and therefore know that it is unfair and unreasonable to criticize someone who has to live with an expectation for performance on a daily basis with everything that they do. And when they don't live up to those expectations, here come the boo birds from all of the laborers and the miserable people out there making 30 to $40,000 a year in a soul-sucking office job who have nothing better to do with their time but to criticize famous people on social media. So that's something that I would try to help Naomi Osaka with. I would say, listen, you need to understand the tenor of these people who are criticizing you, and therefore understand why it is important that you don't take what they have to say with any merit whatsoever. They don't even deserve a grain of salt. They just get ignored, kicked under the rug, because their opinions aren't valid. They hold no weight. They hold no merit. These are the same people who would say mental health doesn't exist. They just don't deserve to be listened to. And that's what I would tell her. I don't necessarily make the most money in the world, but I am someone who thinks of myself as a builder, someone who sacrifices tirelessly in the pursuit of excellence so that one day, if, Lord willing, I can be able to secure generational wealth for myself and those whom I care about. Financial freedom is the key. And until I am able to obtain that, it's work. And while I'm working, you ain't gonna see me on social media criticizing someone else who was able to achieve that very same thing. That makes me look like an irrational idiot, which, according to these numbers, is the majority of this population, 70.23% to be exact. And I'm not trying to say that people making $45,000, $50,000 a year are irrational idiots, but you get the general picture. Most of these people who live in abject misery comprise the vast majority, if not all, the people who are so inclined to criticize someone who is going through something and to do it via social media. Again, I'll say empathy breeds contempt. And, people who don't have the capacity for empathy will always find it easiest to criticize people who have sacrificed the work to earn. So to her, Kevin Love, Rory McIlroy, people who have talked about this kind of stuff because they struggle with how to navigate this and find their own peace of mind and sense of personal self-worth. That's kind of what I would, tell them. And, she'll never watch this video probably, but it doesn't just apply to professional athletes or entertainers or people who have excelled at the height of American industry. Like if you are someone who is over here on the left because everyone else is over here on the right doing one thing and you're sacrificing to build something, Like, keep doing what you're doing. And when people want to criticize the moves that you make, just accept it and chalk it up as that must be an indication that I'm doing something right. Because, you know, conformity is the masses. Most people are going to be doing the same thing. So most people just simply don't know what it's like to be a builder, to sacrifice, to, work, to excel at the height of any particular aspect of industry with respect to any field. That's 70.23% of the population. I truly believe that. I'm willing to bet that there aren't a whole lot of doctors, lawyers, engineers, scientists, tech geniuses on Silicon Valley. I'm willing to bet that there aren't a whole lot of these people who feel so inclined to criticize Naomi Osaka on Twitter. I'm pretty sure none of these people are doing this. It is only the rest of it is only the general population, this 70%, who live in abject misery and will live 50, 60 years as a laborer and simultaneous vessel for untapped potential. These are the people who want to criticize people who have achieved at the highest level. I will never do that, because even if I don't agree with what a pro athlete or anybody in any respective industry who has sacrificed in that regard has to say, I nevertheless respect what they did to get to where they are. They worked to earn it. It wasn't given to them. And I will always respect that. And I think that we should all learn that lesson, because a lot of this is ridiculous. So I feel for Osaka, and I hope that she gets better, better enough to be able to return to competing, soon, because I do enjoy watching her. She's a fantastic player. And it's unfortunate that her anxieties, coupled with just, struggles with dealing with this expectation to perform, which a lot of this, I do believe, comes from the social media firestorm. It's unfortunate that it has resulted in her feeling compelled to step away from the game. I can't imagine being in a position in which success in my field doesn't make me happy, but rather makes me relieved that it wasn't worse. That has to be a very lonely place. And, a lot of us don't get that. But again, 70%, we getting ready to put on them non-slick shoes to go, cook in a restaurant kitchen. I just hope that when you're slicing your hand off on that slicing machine at the deli, or when you got to, refold all of them clothes because them inconsiderate ass people tore your whole section up in the clothes store, or when you got to go to Walmart and restock those shelves at, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and you hate your life. If you have ever criticized any of these professional athletes in the past, I hope this serves as a lesson to you that you need to stop, because, the reason, whatever it is in your brain that makes you think that it's okay for you to criticize these people is the very same thing that has you stocking those shelves, that has you frying that chicken at Popeyes. So, or rather, or even, for those that's the same thing that has a lot of y'all working 40 hours a week at a soul sucking office job. You hate your life, and you count down the minutes until the weekend gets here so that you can get a 48-hour respite before you have to deal with hating your life for another 5 hours. For another 5 days, for another Monday through Friday grind. So this is some of the stuff that I would tell Naomi Osaka, man. I hope she works her way through it. But a lot of us need to have more compassion for people who are in that position, who have to, deal with expectations for performance. And not even just for people who are public facing in the spotlight, but people who are at the top of their respective industries, whether it be law, medicine, science, whatever the case may be. Architecture, engineering, web development, the tech world, people who sacrifice, they're on one end of the spectrum and the other 70% is on the other end. So, that would be pretty much what I would tell her. You need to understand that they don't know what it's like to build, so just ignore them, but maybe someone close to her or in her earshot will see this video and they'll be able to sort of pass those words on to her. Who knows? But either way, that'll do it for the commentary in this video. If you like the commentary in this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Definitely share this video wherever you're watching it. I'll surely appreciate it. You can follow Conscious Approach on Instagram at Conapproach, CONAPPROACH. You can follow me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. Also, check out the website for the full content library, consciousapproach.com. You can also find this video on Facebook. Search Conscious Approach. It has its own page. You can also find me on Facebook at Javis Ogden, Javis Ogden. I'm also on Twitter. I post the video updates on Twitter too. JV Wins, search JV Wins. That's where I'm at there as well. Stop throwing stones at those glass houses, man. Y'all are ridiculous and you're hypocrites. You know, that's 70% of you. That comprises 100% of social media hate. 70% of this population comprises 100% of the population of social media hate. So just keep that in mind the next time that you decide that you want to get on your phone and, you know, get a cathartic release from criticizing somebody who has worked to build success in their life, because that just makes you look like an idiot. And just as an aside, there have been studies that have shown, I've said in the past that people don't really want to solve problems. They just love to complain about them. There have been studies that have been done that have shown that people receive a dopamine rush from complaining about things on the internet. So that's why the majority of the comments on YouTube videos or social media posts and all of that, there's a whole lot of, you know, flame throwing and criticism going on, because that's 70% that comprises 100% of the social media activity. You know, there is a dopamine rush that people get from complaining about things. There's a chemical that gets released in the brain that gives you a feeling of satisfaction that is tantamount to being on heroin or hard drugs. You get the same euphoric feeling, a dopamine rush. So there's food for thought on that as well. But either way, that'll do it for the commentary in this video. I will see you on the flip side. Thank you for supporting the channel. Always remember to support logical content, and I will see you later. I am out.